Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, beautiful people of the world. It's me, Lainey, and I hope you're all having a fantastic day. Today we're going to be doing a MEDIBANG tutorial. What's MEDIBANG, you ask? That is an excellent question. MEDIBANG is a free drawing program. It's great. I've been using it for 4 years now. Am I the best at it? Absolutely not. But I hope this little tutorial to show how I use it on my Apple products, it might be different on your device, but, hopefully this tutorial will be able to help you use the app in some way or try something in a different way that you haven't before. So let's just jump right on in to it. All righty doody. The first step to any good drawing or any most drawing. Yep, that's what I've decided to go with now. The first thing you gotta do is you gotta have a sketch. What I would do on my phone, because sketching on the phone is a lot harder. If you use your phone, you might know this, but what I would do, and you might have seen in other videos of mine, is I would take a photo of an a picture I drew, sketched on paper. Doesn't really matter what kind of paper, doesn't really matter what kind of sketch it is. You just take an image and then you import it into the app, whether it's from your photos or directly from the app, and then you can just color it. And I colored it pretty much the same way I'm going to be showing you a little bit, in a very little bit, very little bit. But what I'm doing now is I'm just doing a quick little sketchy-rooney on the iPad, so it is a lot easier to sketch with an Apple Pencil because that's what it's for, So I've just gotten the pencil tool in a light color, and it doesn't really matter what color it is. I've done a first sketch and a second sketch on the same layer, and now we're done with the sketch, and now we can move into the meaty part of the video, which is the part people actually care about. Let's go. So now I just have a tiny little sketch. Yes, it's very small. I'm gonna use the transform tool, and when you use that, I'm just gonna fill up the page. Why didn't you fill up the page with the sketch? That is an excellent question, person who didn't say anything. The reason why I didn't is because I feel very constricted when I can see the border of the canvas. And it makes me not be able to draw freely, even though this drawing is very stiff. The proportions aren't great, but we're not here to critique my drawing. I'm just going to lower the opacity of the sketch layer and go straight into the line art. But yes, I don't like feeling restricted by the canvas. That is why I draw small. It's just a fun little tip, and if you haven't tried it, maybe you can try it. But this isn't a drawing tutorial, this is a how I use the app, I guess, tutorial, which is basically how I color my drawings tutorial. But we're demonstrating the power of the pen sharp tool. Basically all it does is it's just like the normal pen tool, except all of the ends are tapered, which when you don't have something that has pen sensitivity, like a stylus, Apple Pencil, whatever, those sorts of things, it's a great little tool to use. It's what I did on my phone when I was just using my finger to draw, because it's very hard to make line variation without going into every single line and then erasing bits and adding bits. So it's just a quick little way to get line variation, and if you don't have a stylus or anything that can do pen sensitivity, pressure sensitivity, good tool. The pen, in brackets, sharp tool. But if you do have something that has pen sensitivity, I just use the normal pen tool and just go over my sketch. Very simple, very easy. You can do line art however you want. Sometimes I use the pencil tool and I just color it in that way, but today I'm feeling like sharp lines. Sometimes I don't even bother with a third sketch, which quote-unquote sketch. Anytime I use the pencil tool, I call it a sketch, but sometimes I just use like the second sketch and just color underneath it. But today we're doing line art. Today I'm feeling good. Today this is what's happening. So yeah, the line art, it's not very interesting. It's basically just going over all of the lines. Sometimes I like to fix up my little mistakes. One other little tip, because I like to use the paint bucket tool, which we'll get to in a second, but if you want to use the paint bucket tool, one thing you gotta remember is you gotta try to close all the lines, because if you don't, it'll make your life a little bit difficult later. So let's just finish the line art. Line art is done. Now we're ready for a speedy run through. I'm going to create a new layer, get a lighter color than the line art, then I'm going to get the paint bucket tool, select canvas, make sure it's canvas and not layer. It is very important because if it's not canvas, it will not work. Then I'm going to make sure that the closed gaps is 0. You can make it up to 5. I'm going to color the outside of the layer because then I don't have to go through and make sure every single little bit inside of the person is colored in with the paint bucket tool. Then I'm going to select the layer that I have. Then I'm going to add another color layer, delete the original color layer. Then I'm going to invert the selection and then make sure the paint bucket tool is on layer when I, use the paint bucket tool on the selection. Why do I do this? Well, that's because when you use the layer bucket, instead of the canvas bucket takes into consideration all the lines that it can see currently. If I were to remove the line art, then it would color in the whole thing, but if the line art is there, it'll only color on the outside of where the line art is. But the layer will just do whatever is on the layer. So, since even if there are lines there, it doesn't even consider them because there are no lines on that particular layer. Wow, we're really speeding ahead. Now we're going to go into a clipping color layer above. What a clipping layer does, well, I'll do a demonstration. This is a non-clipping layer. Let's just add some funky colors. It doesn't really matter. This is kind of hurting my eyes. Doesn't really matter because it doesn't matter how out of the lines we get. You know why? Because clipping layers are godly, okay? They save my life. They make my life so much easier. Because now, look, all of that jumble, you can see it in the layer, it's still there, but it only shows up what it is clipped to in the layer before. So, it's a good time, it's a great tool. And that's all you really need to know about it. Now, it doesn't matter how many clipping layers you do above, as long as they're all clipped to the same thing, it honestly doesn't matter. Now I'm going to delete these layers because they are completely irrelevant. And now, let us do what is next, which is actual proper colouring. So I'm just going to speed you through this because I talked way too fast just then, and my brain and kind of hurts a little bit. That is like 3 minutes almost of just solid talking. And my brain hurts so bad, but I'm just going to use the canvas tool to colour in. Just pick the colours that you want to use. I don't really want to go into how to choose colors because, I don't think that is how to use the app, which is how we're doing today. If you want another sort of tutorial on how I draw, how I pick colors, let me know and I'll get to those one of these days, or how I do poses. People really like my poses. I've gotten a couple of comments about them here and there, and if you want to know how I do them, let me know in the comments down below. Whoop, fun. Oh my god, I'm out of breath. Hiya. Okay, so now all of my base colors are done. It doesn't matter how out of the lines it is because I'm going to merge it down. And now look, it is perfectly inside the lines. No clipping layer needed because it's all inside the lines. Now I'm going to explain to you a little bit about patterns and how patterns work. Except I'm not actually going to really show you that much because I decided to make my own random pattern. But a really good tool to use if you want to use patterns is use the materials button, which is the little cubes right next to the layer thing. I'm sure there's a little flashy thing. But within it there are 3 different options, which is the tile, tone, and item. The tile is whatever image you've imported in will tile itself, so they'll all just be little, you know, uh, rows and rows and rows of just the same image over and over again. The tone button just uses the black and the white of the image. It doesn't matter how colorful the image is, it'll make it all it'll just take it's hard to explain. I've never really used the tone one, to be honest. And then the item one is just importing an item and then putting it in an image, whether it's just like a tattoo or a pattern and you just want like a single thing. Like if you use a graphic t-shirt, you can take the graphic that you've drawn yourself or stolen from Google Images. Don't steal from Google Images, it's illegal. Um, but there, that's all you gotta do. And sometimes it's better to make them yourself. because you can make them go along with the curves of the body, but half of the time I don't really care because when I do the shading, it doesn't really matter. Which the shading is what we're going to do now. When I do shading, it is almost exclusively on the multiplier layer. First, I'm going to do a little demonstration on how the multiplier layer works. You probably can't really see what I just did, but if you can see on the layer, you can see I just used white. When you use white, nothing happens, and the darker the color you use, the more it'll show up. If you use a really yellow color like I've used here, it will come up really yellow, and that's just how it works. Sort of it just darkens basically, but it's a very nice sort of thing for shading. I don't know the exact word I'm looking for multiplayer layers, but if you've never used them, I big suggest it. Very, very big suggest it. But first I'm going to use the multiplier layer for blush. Why I do it on a multiplier layer, not just a normal layer, is if it bleeds into other areas, it sort of looks more normal. If I don't forget to erase certain areas, it's not as noticeable. And also sometimes I just like just the effect. But and it's better with group pictures because you can use the same color on every single person. It doesn't matter what skin tone they have, it'll just multiply to whatever skin tone. So that's what I do for blush. And with shading, what I like to do is I like to pick a color that is anywhere between an orangey color to orange, red to purple, maybe blue, but that is my general range for shading. The warmer it is, the more it feels like you're outside in the sun, and the cooler it is, colder it sort of looks, or darker almost. Like if you use a blue, it's more like nighttime sort of thing. But this is not a coloring, how to pick color tutorials. But typically what I use is, I would roughly say, a pinkish purple, and I like to do a more, well, to be honest, this is a little bit darker than what I usually do, and it's also a bit more orange than I usually do, and I do change it, but I'm gonna do a little speedy boy of just where I do the shading, so speedy. I have since realized I have nothing really that interesting to say about these last few steps in my coloring process. So obviously this first one I'm doing is my base shading. It's just, where the shadows are. If you're having trouble figuring out where the shadow should go, what I like to do sometimes is make a little yellow dot where I want the light to be coming from, and then do a couple of little rays, and that generally helps me. But I'm just experimenting with a couple of different shading colors, but I always default to a almost pinkish purple color. That's just what I find the nicest, and it really complements very light pastel-y colors, which is obviously what I like to work with. Then I'm going to add another multiply layer, and then this blue, I just did a Gaussian blur, which is a filter mode, and then I'm going to do basically the same thing but a lighter version. Instead of using the multiply layer for light, which won't work, I use a overlay layer. An overlay layer is just nice. Okay, it's just nice. It just makes it look very nice and light over the top of any color. It's sort of like literally the reverse multiply, but multiply and overlay layers are really great for shading and highlighting, and that's mostly all I have to say about that. Then the last little thing that I have to say, which I did not record sadly, was me explaining how I deal with the line art after the drawing, because you might notice that I used a blue color, which is not the color I want it to be finalized in, but luckily it's on a separate layer. I can just use the same clipping tool as I did earlier, and I can change the color of the line art to whatever I want. Sometimes I go straight up, I'll just pick one color and do it all, and sometimes I will go in and individually outline certain areas. Like the hat's brown, so I'll use the eyedropper tool, pick the darkest part of the brown, make it slightly darker, and color in all the areas of the hat, and it just, make all those colors how it is. That is how I use it that way. And then 9 times out of 10, I will just use the shape tool in the circle, and then just make a big circle in the back, and then it's just simply done. But with that being said, thank you all so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to do the YouTube things like comment, subscribe, you know what they are. Links as always will be in the description down below, so please go and check them out. I hope you all have a fantastic Monday, and if it's not Monday when you're watching this, I hope you have a fantastic rest of the day, and I will see you all in the next video. Wow, posting on a Monday, that's really unusual for me, considering I'm finishing this at 4 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday. Oh, I'm saying it's a Monday, but it's actually Tuesday for me. So I don't even know anymore. But I hope you found this helpful, and if you did, I'm really glad. And if you didn't, I'm glad you are sitting through this outro right now. I really appreciate you.